Cool. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our presentation. Can you see the screen all right? Yeah, fantastic. My name is Carlo, and this is Team Turtle Dash. So our project and the aim was to create an addictive game that could be played on the browser as well as on the mobile as well. Again, the team consists of 5 people. So again, myself, Carlo, alongside Charlotte, Imogen, Tamara, and Yasmin. I'd like to pass you on to Tamara, who will talk about the game and show us a demo as well.
Hi everyone, so I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of our game Turtle Dash. Now the aim of the game is that you're a little turtle swimming in the ocean and you have to swim for as long as you can before the timer reaches 0 or before the shark catches you. Now there are a number of things you need to collect in the game that will help you along. These are stars and jellyfish, as well as a few things you should avoid, which is the sea trash and the shark itself. So let's have a look at the game in action. So when you start the game, you can click How to Play, which will give you the instructions on what you need to do in the game. And then click and Start will start the game. Now, as you can see, you're a little turtle swimming up and down. If you click, you'll swim upwards. If you let go, you go down. Now, basically, you're just aiming to get as many stars as possible because getting stars will add 1 second to your timer, and hitting the trash will take 1 second from your timer. If you do get a jellyfish, you will go into rainbow mode, and this will push the shark back from getting you a little bit, and it will also help you to avoid and swim through trash. There's also some obstacles like coral that will get in your way, but you can always just swim up or below it to push it out the way. We've got some more jellyfish here now, so we are swimming through the trash. The shark will go closer throughout the game at all times, so you really do need to get as much jellyfish as possible to keep him at bay. And as time goes on, if you don't get enough, he will catch up with you, as I feel is about to happen right about now. And oh dear, it's game over. So on this screen now, you have an opportunity to type your name. And if you do type your name in and submit your score, you will see a list of all your high scores, which you can keep coming back to at any time and try to beat your score and be the best that you can be, basically. So that was the demo of our game, and I'm now going to pass you on to Charlotte, who will tell us a bit more about how we worked as a team.
Hello everyone, I'm going to start by talking about our days as a team. So this you see in front of us is our daily team timetable, and some of the important stuff on there is mobbing, which is working as a group. So every day we would do a bit of mobbing. We would kind of work together to help us understand our tech stack, help us make decisions together as a team, and it would help us like learn the entire code base. We'd know what each other's coding, we could explain it to each other and stuff like that. We also had a retro at the end of the day where we would go over everything we'd done that day, and then we would play Among Us for a little bit of team bonding and a bit of relaxation after the game, after the day has ended. So how we worked as a team, we were a team of 5, which was quite large. So we had to be really consistent with our communication. We had the retro at the end of the day, which we communicated all our ideas together and stuff. We had mood check-ins, and we also held a bit of time in the retro to give and receive feedback in case anybody wasn't like happy with how the team was working, and it was always a safe space for everyone to work together. As for our actual planning for the project, we worked on a Miro board, so there's a lot going on there, but we have like a tight daily timetable, we have to-do list, we have our wireframes and some brainstorming ideas for when we actually started our project. And for our minimum viable product, we just wanted our game to have a turtle that moves along, and the further you go, the more points you collect. This is like a rough timeline that we kept to. So the first day we was just doing project planning. The second day we started to code, but on the third day we realized that maybe our tech stack wasn't quite right, which we'll talk about next. So then Thursday we decided to change technology, and actually that worked out really well for us, and then it kind of was mostly smooth sailing from there onwards, adding graphics and fixing bugs and stuff, and then we are with our finished product today. I'm going to hand you over to Imogen, who's going to talk about the challenges in our project.
So as Charlotte mentioned, one of the main challenges that we faced was with our tech stack. We began to build our game with React Native Game Engine and Matter.js, but we really struggled to just render basic game elements and to get the physics applied to them. So that meant that we struggled to even get our player to move the way that we wanted to. There was a real lack of documentation for both the game engine and Matter.js. So we were making really slow progress and it was very experimental. Another thing that we struggled with was that we wanted to create hills, but because we were struggling with the physics, we were really struggling to get the ground and the player itself to interact well with each other. On this side, you can actually see a few examples of the first 3 days. So on the left there, that was 2 days of hard work. And on the right was after day 3. So as you can see, it wasn't going well. So how we overcame that. We did some research and we kind of realized that we'd rushed into our tech stack, that React Native Game Engine and Matter.js wasn't a great combination for the type of game we were trying to create. So yeah, after some more research and a lot of discussion, we decided on Phaser, which is a 2D game framework for making games for both mobile and desktop. So that was ideal for us, and it really allowed us to progress really quickly after we'd done that. I'm going to pass on now to Yasmin, who's going to talk about our new challenges we faced.
Hi everyone. So yeah, as previously mentioned, we'd chosen the new tech stack and it was pretty smooth sailing, but we did have a few struggles. The first one was testing. We did want to follow a test-driven development process. Unfortunately, we just didn't find a framework that was able to read phaser.js. To solve that problem, essentially our testing was just playing the game. We were able to progress quickly and get a game done with what we were happy with by the Tuesday, and we were able to give it out to a few friends and family, and they kind of became our beta testers. So shout out to anyone that did that. Thank you very much. And the second challenge we had was with the physics again. Obstacles and things just didn't behave how we wanted them to. Trying to get the stars to go across, we ended up with an infinite amount and crashed my computer. But the solution to this was essentially we had to give up on the hills idea and essentially go for a swimming turtle, which was quite easy to do. A couple of things did happen whilst we were trying to make it swim though. Ended up with a crazy bouncing turtle and it's spinning around. But eventually we did get it gliding along nicely, and because of this we were able to implement a lot more features and add an element of randomness. So in the same game you could have hardly any obstacles, or you could have too much of everything. So it is a game of skill but also a bit of luck as well. So I'll just hand you over to Carlo and he'll talk about what we learned over the 2 weeks.
So yeah, so what did we learn? So we learned that it's important to research the tech stack that you're going to be doing on your project before jumping in. As mentioned earlier, we did start with React Native and ended up switching over to Phaser.js. It's better to start again from the beginning rather to struggle all the way forward. And although they do look nice, making games are harder than they look. So we did find that out, but eventually, we did, progress quite well during the weeks. So yeah, thank you very much. This is the website for our game, so please feel free to try it out by going in the website or scanning the QR code on the right. Again, the left picture shows us where we started, and right now on the right shows us how it's going. Once you play the game, keep an eye out for the Easter egg surprise. Obviously, you have to play it to see it. So get your cameras out, scan the QR code, and get dashing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Turtle Dash team. That was a very good presentation. We're all really glad that you had fun and that you learned a lot building this project. So now let's move on to our second team tonight. It's called the Task Monster team. So they taught themselves a couple of stacks. They kept on working in Ruby on Rails. They learned also different stacks like React Native and MongoDB. So it's really pleasing to see them working with new tech stack, teaching themselves and having fun as well. So without further ado, please, Task Monster team, you want to go to your presentation?
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Task Monster, where the monsters are slave to your productivity. So let me introduce you our app closely. So it takes inspiration from the days of Tamagotchi, where children were desperate to do as many tasks and as many steps as possible during the day to keep their digital pet alive. Therefore, our app aims to motivate adults to complete tasks through the day and be more productive. The more tasks they complete, the more the monster grows and evolves. If tasks are failed too often, the monster will shrink, devolve, and eventually die. In other words, our app is a gamified to-do list. In terms of our tech stack, we used a number of different technologies to build our app. React Native, our front end, is what shows our app on the display. Expo extends those features. MongoDB is the database in the cloud where our data is stored. And Rails is our backend and allows our app to communicate with the database and vice versa. Meta.js is what handles the physics calculations for a monster, allowing it to jump and walk in a more natural way. And how it all started? We had a brainstorming session where we came up with a few ideas before voting on which one to continue with. Then we went on to research possible technologies in order to progress. Something we have learned on this course is that without quality documentation, you'll find it very hard to move forward. So we did a quick Google search of a technology and a type of app to get an idea of the amount of resources available on the topic, and also how common this technology is for kind of application. Now, Elian will take over and tell you more about the struggles we faced during the development.
As with any large project, we met a fair amount of difficulties during the development process. I would like to share with you a few of them. Our first major challenge was implementing authentication. We needed a way for the user to log in and store their own tasks. The way of doing this was with a token, a unique random generated string of characters. Generating a token and send it to our app was fine. The difficult part was to teach the backend to recognize that token and link it to the user. After lots of trial and error, we finally managed it after almost 2 days of work. The second big issue we have was with storing the time for the task deadlines. We needed to decide what is the correct time for our app. From developers' point of view, there is more than one correct time. We had to choose between the user device time and our server time based in UK. For now, our app will be used only in UK, so to escape complexity, we decided to stick with our server time. And finally, styling. Getting the app to look good on one device could be difficult, but the difficulty was nothing compared to trying to get the app to display uniformly across a variety of devices. The app even sometimes displayed different on a simulator and a real phone. Unfortunately, there was no simple solution to this problem, just lots of tweaking, testing on a variety of devices till everything was rendered correctly. Now Fraser will tell you about our group process and give you a demo of our app.
Okay, so we're a small team, as you probably saw. There's only 3 of us. This had quite a big influence on how we separate our tasks or how we didn't separate them. So we ended up spending a lot of time working as a single group or mobbing, especially in the first week. As more of the major components of the app were completed, we began to work separately a bit more on tickets. So we met each morning for a mood check-in and to create issue cards and then assign tasks for the morning. If we managed to complete those tasks quickly, we normally had another meeting just before lunch to merge all of the new code that we'd written. Then at 2 p.m. after lunch, we would meet again and assign new issues. And then finally, at about 5 p.m., we'd merge all of our work for the day and talk about our failures and achievements and what we could do for the next day. So let's finally give you a bit of a walkthrough of our app. So on the left, you can see this is what you're met with when you first go to sign up. So you sign up a user with your email and your password. And once you've done that, you're met with a screen where you can create your first task. So task, you can give a title and a description, and you can also set a deadline for it. And if you set a deadline, you'll get this sort of countdown timer showing you how long you have to complete your task. After you've added the task, you're taken to the task list screen, as you can see. And on that screen, you can mark tasks as completed and failed, in which case they will move to the completed task list screen. On the screen, some tasks will show in green if they were completed successfully, and in red if they were failed. If a task is not completed by the deadline time, then it will automatically be marked as failed. If you make a mistake when adding a task, or maybe your circumstances change, you can edit or delete tasks if necessary. Okay, now on to the more fun part, our monsters. So you can see four different stages here with a different number of tasks. So the first stage, where you don't have any points, you're going to end up with an egg. And as you get more and more tasks, your egg will grow, and eventually it will hatch into this sort of swirl-like creature. And as you do more and more completed tasks, it will grow again into the next stage of our monster. And then this will be the final stage of our monster on the right. You can see it grows and grows and grows and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So this is what happens if you complete your task successfully. If you fail your tasks, then what's going to happen eventually is you're going to get into a negative score, and your creature will die. And you'll just be left with the ghost of your creature, the ghost of your monster, to haunt your device until you get back into a positive score. There is some basic interaction with our monster as well. So if you click on the screen, you can make your monster jump. And in the case of the ghost, it will even fly if you click fast enough. Okay, that is everything for Task Monster. Thank you for watching.
Thank you very much, Task Monster team. I'm pretty sure many of us that had a Tamagotchi in the past are feeling nostalgic now. So thank you. It was a great presentation. Let's move to the final team for tonight. It's the team Chow. They taught themselves a couple of technologies like Java, Android Studios, and Firebase. So please, team, onto your presentation.
Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to Chow, an Android application which aims to transform the way we see food delivery services and reunite the communities using them. First of all, I'd like to introduce our team. My name's Michael, and I'll be covering our motivation behind the idea. Zish will be taking us through a demo. Josh will be detailing our approach, and James will be talking about the challenges that we faced along the way. So first of all, our motivation. And this all started with a problem. And one thing all of us within the team recognised was the way in which the recent changes to our civil liberties driven by this recent pandemic has really amplified many of the modern problems that we now face. Our local communities have been impacted from two sides. Local business, some have shut down, and others have had their operations restricted. And on the other side, communities are slightly more isolated, and this includes individuals of all ages. So how are we going about solving this particular problem that we've identified? Well, first of all, to support existing local businesses. This involves local producers and home kitchens, as we like to call them, by enabling them to list their produce on our platform and adapt to the changes that we see. Secondly, to foster connections, the community can access meals from the local kitchens and local produce, and regular users of other food delivery apps who perhaps are a little fed up with a lack of wholesome food on offer on the alternatives. And thirdly, to develop a general entrepreneurial spirit. Our app provides a slick platform for new local entrepreneurs, and this can include just people who've got into baking over lockdown, and maybe they want to showcase a small business. They'll be able to access our ready-made customer base through the Chow network. So why food? So we did a bit of research, and the food service delivery market is worth around £8.5 billion. And this is largely thanks to recent dramatic growth in online delivery concept, specifically on mobile apps. One thing we identified, however, that these apps do not have is a focus on home-cooked style meals and local produce. And this is where we saw our opportunity. Now I'd like to hand you over to Zish, who's going to take you through a demo of our app.
Thank you, Mikey. Now, everybody, let's put ourselves in the position of a typical Chow user. I'm thinking of a scenario perhaps where the winter nights are drawing in, it's cold, it's dark, it's getting late, and I'm feeling hungry. But the problem is, I'm in a tier 3 alert lockdown level, so it looks like I'm going to be staying in tonight. And I'm looking in the fridge, and there's not much in there, so that can only mean one thing. It's Takeaway Friday. Now, I could just order from Deliveroo or Just Eat, but I kind of have a craving for a hearty home-cooked meal, and maybe some fresh local produce. So do you know what? Maybe Chow can help brighten up my day. So I'll start by going through the sign-up process like I just did, and entering my phone number, name, and unique password. And now I've signed up, I'll log in with these details. I'll input my username and my password, as I'm doing at this moment. Here we go. And oops, yeah, I've put the wrong username in, and it's sent me a flash notification to alert me of that fact. And yep, we're in. So as you can see, we've got a list of different food categories, ranging from home-cooked meals to fresh meat and fish, and a wonderful selection of local produce. But I've still got that craving for a shepherd's pie, so let me select home-cooked meals. And now you can see a list of local businesses, or kitchens as we like to call them in Chow speak. And the kitchen names may be familiar to some of you watching. Now each kitchen has a unique list of menu items with the facility to add multiple items to your cart. So now I've got my shepherd's pie, I'm gonna enter that and add that to the cart. And now I feel like something sweet for dessert. So let me head over to Madame Luthier's Bakery. Great selection of sweet treats there. I think I'll go for the cheesecake. As you can see, my cart shows how many items I already have in my basket. Now, how about some fresh produce from one of Chow's local suppliers? I think I may want to make an apple pie on the weekend, so I think I need some juicy apples. I think 4 large ones should do it, and that's me done. So I'll use the back button to return to the home page and click out with the cart. And the cart screen shows the list of items currently in my basket, and I have the facility to adjust quantities, which recalculates the total at the bottom. I can also side swipe to remove an item, and the final step is to place my order. So I'll enter my delivery address, which is going to be Makers HQ. So Makers team, heads up, there's a cheesecake overload incoming. And then I can access the orders I've placed through this floating action bar to the left of the screen. Before finally I'll sign out. And we're done. My name's Zish, I'm in Cheesecake Heaven, and now I'll hand you over to my good friend Josh.
Thank you, Zish. Now on to our approach. To start with, we had to make a plan. So to our Miro board, we went. In our planning sessions, we created user stories, devised our database structures and relationships, planned out our tech stack, and created mock-ups of our app, all of which allowed us to gain a clear vision of what we wanted to produce. How did we go about learning? Java and Android Studios were new technologies to us. So we mainly used Google's Android developer documentation to acquire the knowledge needed to build our app. We found that as this documentation is frequently updated, it is far more reliable than other independent resources, such as the Medium articles out there. Once we formed the team, we established regular stand-ups at 10 a.m. to discuss our daily planning goals, with retros at 6 p.m. in which we reflected upon the day and discussed our priorities for the morning. Then to actually build the app, we formed a well-rounded development process consisting of mobbing and pairing. If unfamiliar with mobbing, it's essentially a style of work in which all members of a team constantly work together and quote unquote mob any issues that may arise. We mainly mob to share knowledge and to debug errors, then paired up in order to implement our features. How we built Chow. Our tech stack may be small in number, but it is efficient and complements one another perfectly. We have Java, the language we used for developing Chow. Why Java, you may ask? We wanted to use an object-oriented language, as that's what we've been using throughout our memorable time here at Makers. But we also wanted a little bit of a challenge. And as Java is statically typed compiled language, it was the worthy choice. Android Studios is the environment that we used to develop our app. Since we wanted to build an Android app, it seemed only natural. And we soon learned that Android Studios was a very handy tool, and when fully utilized, it made formatting our app a delight. And lastly, we got Firebase as a platform for creating a cloud-hosted database, which allowed all of us to collaborate together. We did consider using alternatives, but we found that integrating our code was a lot simpler using Firebase. And now I'd like to pass you over to my chief, James Glenn.
Thanks, Josh. So what challenges did we face during our time building Chow? Well, we came into this project with big ambitions. Our initial aspiration was to build 2 flows for the app, the user side and the kitchen side. But in hindsight, we perhaps underestimate the complexity of learning a language like Java, especially in such a short space of time. And as a result, sacrifices had to be made. We all had to accept the reality that something from our app wouldn't make the final cut. Even if we worked night and day, it was unlikely that we would build it all within a 2-week time frame, especially taking into account the fact that Java was new to all of us. Deciding what to cut was a real challenge. We wanted all of these features to be in our app, but we came together as a group and made the tough decision to just focus on making the user experience the best it could be. So we have 3 main takeaways from this experience. Firstly, the importance of effective and sometimes tough decision-making, and also in recognizing when we need to make those decisions early on. Secondly, that the Makers process really works, and that we've all become language agnostic and can now be confident in approaching new languages. And lastly, embedding agile workflows into your process and utilizing methods of project management pays dividends when it comes to delivering results. And on that note, I thank you all for watching.
Thank you very much, Tim. And thank you to all the teams. I'd like to remind you again that now we're gonna have the Q&A session. But first, I'll invite you to all the different teams and the people to reflect on how much you've achieved since you started at Makers. And you're able to make your applications or your ideas come true and come to life, and in many different ways and using many different technologies. So thank you very much for your amazing presentations. Yeah, I hope you all have fun watching the demos, and I'll hand over to Haley now.
Cool. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Josue, and congratulations to August 2020 cohort, another set of amazing projects. So yeah, it was really, really nice to see. Cool. So for everyone still online with us today, this section is going to be a bit of a Q&A with some of the members of staff here at Makers. So if you're thinking of maybe doing the course yourself, or you just want to learn a little bit more about what we do, then this is the section for you to ask us anything, and we can help out. So today on the call with me, I've got Alice. She's the head of coaching here at Makers, and I've also got Joe here with me, who's one of the course managers. So you might have seen the Q&A function down at the bottom. Just type your questions in there, and then we'll just go through them and do our best to answer them. Cool. So there's already one question in the chat, so we'll get started with that and then go from there. So Katie has asked us, sorry if this question doesn't make sense. I'm sure it does, like, it's all good. So how many languages are the students having to teach themselves, and how much of how to complete these projects is taught? Okay, I see what you're saying. Alice, I'm going to head to you to take this one.
Yeah, no worries. And thank you for your question, Katie. So there are 2 main languages that are part of the course, and that will be Ruby and JavaScript. And on these languages, basically throughout the course, the devs will have projects where they will have to use those languages to develop programs and applications. So Ruby and JavaScript. However, for these projects here, you will have seen that not all of them have used Ruby or JavaScript. In fact, there's a team that used Java, which is quite different from JavaScript. And that is very much something that this team chose to work with. It was their own personal choice, and they self-taught themselves on Java. So coaches may have been around to help them make the best choices possible to self-learn, or maybe sometimes when they were blocked on a bug, just remind them of a good debugging process. But there's absolutely no instruction about Java in the course. So, and then not just about the languages, but even about the project themselves. The devs have used different frameworks like React Native or Phaser. And this is not at all something that we cover in the course. In fact, what we do is we try to, we cover a number of frameworks and languages, but the idea is that we help you get the tools and the confidence to realize that actually resources are out there. And if you have a bit of structure and if you have good programming processes, you can teach yourself whatever you want. So all of these projects, the ideas come from the developers, the tech stack they used came as a decision from the team, and we're just here to support. This is entirely their own work.
And I'm gonna ask you a follow-up, because I think sometimes when people kind of hear about boot camps, they're like, well, why am I teaching myself? Like, could you tell us a little bit more about like the benefit of kind of coaching that way of thinking?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that's a great question. Thank you. Yeah, I guess the question there is like, well, if I can teach myself, like surely maybe I can just teach myself at home, and it is possible. It is possible to be a developer by just teaching yourself at home with the resources you find on the internet. But you come to a bootcamp, and then maybe you come to a bootcamp and you're thinking, well, why does the bootcamp want me to teach myself? If I'm coming to a bootcamp, it's so that I don't teach myself at home. And the reason why we do this is, well, first of all, as a developer, throughout your life, you will have to learn new technologies. So because developers work with technology and technology moves and changes all the time, in a career as a developer, you are likely to change frameworks and languages and specialty many, many times, and maybe even several times in a job in a year or two. So you, as a developer, you absolutely need to have the skills to find the resources to unlock yourself and to teach yourself the new frameworks and new programs. You can't just take training every time you want to change technology. But another reason is that this kind of active learning is also better for your confidence, because then you realize I can do this on my own. And it's also more likely to stick in your mind as a practice, as opposed to, I followed all the steps you've told me and I've got to that result, but what if I didn't have the steps? Well, what we do instead is we give you a goal, and we ask you to figure out the steps with support throughout and like general guidance on the typical process. But then at the end, you can realize, well, actually, with a goal, if I set myself a goal, I can get there by myself. And so we really want all of our devs at the end of the course to be thinking, well, you know what, I cannot, like, I'm ready to work on anything, because I know that if I'm challenged to do something, I'll find a way to unblock myself. I'll find a way to get resources. I'll find a way to ask the questions that will lead me there. And in fact, I was chatting to the cohort today and talking about the full course, and they're all saying that, exactly that. Maybe the job hunt is a little bit stressful, but you know what? I also know that I can take on anything now. I have the tools to unblock myself.
Cool, thanks so much, Alice. Hopefully that answers your question, Katie. So it's kind of about like the lifelong learning and being prepped. Cool, thanks. So the next question is way at the other end, right at the start of the journey. So Joe, maybe it'd be good if we could hear from you. In fact, there's two similar ones from Charlie and Bonnie, so I'm going to combine them into one. They're asking, how well do you need to know Ruby before getting on the course? And yeah, just how much do you need to know before the bootcamp?
Cool. Yeah, good questions. In terms of getting onto Makers, there's what we call a pairing session, which is essentially a coding challenge. It's kind of like our interview to get into Makers. So you need to have some sort of technical level by that point, but there's loads that we can do to help you get to that point. So you're not on your own at that point. In terms of the Ruby, there are two resources that we'll tell you to prepare with. They're great ones to get started on anyway. So if you're brand new to coding, they're, as I say, great ones to get started on, get you into it. One's called Code Academy, which I'm sure most of you would have heard of. It's a really popular one, but that gets you to know the syntax a bit better. And then moving on to a second one called Code Wars, and that one's a lot more challenge-based. So you're sort of building a problem-solving logic at the same time as learning Ruby. The problem-solving logic is something that we're going to be looking for in the pairing session as well. So going between those two, there's a basic course on Code Academy. No need to pay for the pro version. It keeps popping up and saying you should do. You can ignore that for now. The basic course takes about 15 hours, and on Code Wars, the two levels to focus on are levels 8 and 7. Weirdly, at levels 8 is the beginning one. So levels 8 and 7, and we say to get a score of around 100. So by doing that, we know that you've been preparing, which is a good sign. You're sort of dedicated to learning and wanting to do this, but also that you've got the knowledge gained from Code Academy and you know how to put it and solve problems from Code Wars. So that's what's needed to get onto Makers, basically.
Cool, thank you so much, Joe. And I think when you guys are looking to apply, or if you're thinking about it, you can always call the team as well to kind of find out what level you're at. They'll give you kind of like advice and a bit of an estimation. So like the first time you contact us doesn't have to be the I'm ready to apply. Like Joe and Rachel, their team are all there to support you with that process. So yeah, don't be afraid to call. Cool. So the next question is from Harriet, and she's asking about the apprenticeship. So she's saying, I'm a career changer, keen to do the Makers course. Considering all my options, though I have some financial commitments. Regarding the apprenticeship option, where you are sponsored by a partner, how do you go about applying as that it's not currently listed on the Makers site? Okay, cool. Thank you for asking about it, Harriet. So I believe you can still click onto the apprenticeship section and register your interest. And basically the way it works with apprenticeships is they're a little bit more sporadic. So we'll contact you when opportunities do come up. Is there anything that I'm missing on that, Joe, at all that's different to that?
No, you're right. And so after you've passed the apprenticeship interview, you went to our apprenticeship candidate pool. And at the moment, our pool is full of people. And so we can't be letting any more people into that. And as Hayley said, every 3 months we'll be doing a new cohort. So we'll be using people from that pool. And then that's when we start to bring in new people. I think there's a new cohort in January. So you can sort of maybe expect the pool to be reopened and applications to be live, but you can register your interest and be the first ones to find out on our website.
Cool, lovely, thank you so much. So the next one is from Chris asking, how have you adapted the teaching process now that we're fully remote, and how have students found working together remotely? Alice, over to you.
Sorry, yeah. So I think the course hasn't changed that much, actually. I think that's the first thing that is important. Even before we were remote, we were using Slack day to day to communicate with students and to create a community feeling with the cohorts. So even before we went remote, people were always communicating through Slack, sending each other resources, asking questions. And we're still relying on that a lot to really create that community feeling. And if you like if you are on Slack, you kind of see what is happening with different cohorts, different groups. You can see events that happen. So there's a strong kind of what you would have heard around you in the building if you were at Makers, you're still getting from Slack. Now for the teaching specifically, there are a few different forms of teaching, or we rather say coaching because it's more student-led than coach-led. One thing that we do is workshops, and so we use Zoom to do workshops a little bit like here, except that all participants can talk. And so a coach would open a workshop on Zoom, a call on Zoom, call in the devs on Slack saying, hey, the workshop is starting now. Everyone is opening Zoom on their own machine. And then we talk about like maybe we check in, how are you doing today? There's a little bit of conversation. And then we would cover a topic, maybe share our screen to show what we're working on. Zoom has this possibility of like breaking down students into smaller rooms where they can talk about topics in groups or 2 or 3s, and then come back to the session. So the interactivity of the workshop is very much is very similar. You can still talk to people around you in the workshop and ask your questions. And then the other parts of coaching at Makers is very much about pairing or teamwork. And so for pairing and teamwork, so again, this happens a lot through Zoom. People communicate on Slack, and then they set themselves a time where they start. And then when they start, they will share a Zoom link. And all afternoon, if they're pairing, they would probably have a Zoom call open. They talk to each other, they share the screen. So each one in turn will share their screen while they're coding. And when you're pairing, you always want to kind of be expressing what you have in your head and communicating what your thoughts are, and the other person is replying, and you're trying to share that same brain space. And I think it works really well with Zoom because you don't have any other distractions. You are in your home or in your own place, and you just look at your screen and you have here the code and the person that you're pairing with in the same place. So people do that. That's how you get to meet a lot of your cohort. We also organize socials from time to time, but I would say the course hasn't changed that much. I guess one more thing I will say is, so when we were on site, there was all the devs would be in one big open space, and there would be a coach table where people would go to the coaching table and ask a question. And now what happens is that there's a Slack channel, which is called Coaches. And when devs have a question, they're blocked on something, they go to the channel and they ask a question, and then the coach will jump on it and either send them a direct message or do a quick Zoom call with them. So there's a lot of communication that go through Zoom and through Slack. And I would say that the amount of communication has not changed at all. And in fact, I think there's even more, there's probably even more life happening on Slack. And you can really get to see the character of a cohort by opening the Slack channel. To me, it's very, very lively. It's not at all isolated or, I really feel like I see the other coaches and I see the devs every day. So remote has not changed that at all.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's one of those things it's reflective of the course itself, but also in terms of like the job hunting process and things like that. There's a lot of extra work that's been laid on, and a lot of things that have been transferred straight across from being in person. So there's still that kind of support from careers coaches, from our holistic coach, all that kind of thing. So yeah, the experience of it, I mean, from an outside perspective anyway, is very similar to on-site. Cool, so thank you for your question, Chris. So the next question is asking about, so the next question from Jack is saying, for those who aren't confident in mathematics, how important is that for doing this apprenticeship or the course in general, I would say? And how important is it for this kind of career? It'd be good to hear from maybe both of you, like in terms of who we have applying, but then also outcomes. Joe, is there anything that you'd kind of advise?
It's a common thought that people have, a really common one, and I think that often coding and what it is sometimes surprising to people. But in terms of who we get onto the course, I always say it's like the best bit. That's my favorite bit, is hearing people's stories beforehand, what they were doing, why they transitioned into tech. And there's very rarely things that connect those things, such as mathematics. That isn't necessarily one. It's, are they wanting to learn? Do they love learning? And yeah, do they kind of like have an interest in tech and similar things like that? But yes, it's not needed necessarily. There are lots of other things that will make you a brilliant software developer, brilliant coder, and those people maybe hated maths. But yeah, there's obviously different parts of coding. So if you do have a mathematical brain, there'll be sections where you'll do well in, or you'll probably angle yourself to follow that path a bit more compared to if you do hate it. But yeah, I'm sure Alice can say a little bit more about that as well.
Yeah, I also think that it's a very, I was going to say it's a very common misconception. I think it's not a misconception. I think it's something that society sells a little bit. If you need to be a math whiz to be a programmer, and I don't think it's true at all. When you program, you are imagining how to solve a problem, and then you're expressing that to the computer. That's what you're doing. So there are two skills that are important. One is being able to break down how to solve a problem in 2 steps. And that's what you do when you are trying to, move. Let's say you want to move your apartment and you have to figure out, okay, well, how many boxes do I need, and what will I put in each boxes, and in what order will I put them in the truck? It's this type of problem solving. And then there's translating it to the computer, and that takes some communication skills, and then that takes a lot of practice and learning a new language. Can math help for programming? Yes, sometimes. The same way that math can help you figure out how many boxes or maybe in what order, but you can absolutely do it without having much math skills. And I think it will make of you a slightly different programmer if you're someone like your background. And I love that we have developers with a lot of different backgrounds, but I feel like people from different backgrounds will bring something unique to their programming, and that diversity is actually what makes for a better programmer and a better world of tech. So the main skills are problem solving, and that's something that we really focus on in the course, and then translating that to the computer. Patience is useful, like a mindset of, if I have an error, I'll just try again. This is really useful, but math, not that much.
Cool, thanks so much, guys. The question has just switched around. Okay, so the next one we have is from Harriet asking, we might not know yet, but do you expect trainees to come into London daily in 2021 when the COVID situation relaxes, or will there be an option to stay remote? Yes, good question. I'm glad this came up actually, because it's obviously something that everyone wants to know about. So I've checked on this today, and originally our plan was to return January 2021, but obviously with the kind of developing COVID situation, we're constantly updating it. And at the moment, as people are being advised to keep working from home where possible, obviously for us it's very possible, so we do not have a return date currently, but with everything in this situation, when things become clearer for us, then we'll update everyone involved as well. So currently the cohorts that are open, those are all remote places, and none of them will like switch halfway through. So if you apply for a remote cohort, it will stay remote. So don't worry if you're in like Aberdeen about having to like commute all the way down. But yeah, we'll let you know when we know. Cool. So the next question is asking, what are the most common jobs that graduates from Makers get employed in? Software development in honesty. The vast majority just join as junior developers. There's a little bit of variation sometimes with testing roles, or there's been a few DevOps roles scattered around, but yeah, I mean, we are a software development bootcamp, so hopefully if that's the career that you're going into, that's what we'll definitely have most options in. Cool. So the next one from Katie is asking, similarly to what we've had before, how difficult is it to get accepted onto the course? Aside from the resources that you mentioned, is there anything else that's important to get in, Joe?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned this, because there was one bit that I missed out. So it's not necessarily difficult to get into Makers if you've done the prep, but it's surprising the people who don't do the prep, and they kind of just want that quick reward. They maybe are just thinking of that end product, but they're surprised that they have to do this prep work, which can take 2, 3, 4 weeks. So that's sort of our natural selection of getting not getting rid of making it difficult to get onto the course. But there is a third, I suppose, aspect that we'll be looking for is that pairing element of the pairing session. you'll be pairing with somebody from the admissions team. They won't be doing too much coding, but they'll be there to bounce ideas off, give you little hints if you need to, or yeah, just have someone there. But also what's important there is your communication. And so you'll be saying your thought process out loud, saying your approach to the problems that you're facing out loud, almost showing all of your workings out loud, instead of like written on a piece of paper. It's like that classic thing of if you get the answer wrong, but you've shown all your workings, then we can tell you, oh, this person knows their stuff. If they were to retrace their steps, maybe they could have another go and get it right this time. And that's just as good an answer as getting it smack on the first time. So to do that, we've got to have practiced that. It can be quite hard on your own. Usually practicing on your own, maybe in your room, the last thing you want to do is kind of be saying stuff out loud at your screen. It can be a bit alien. So we do a few different workshops and events to practice that. In the evenings, we do a code accelerator workshop, which is coach-led. So they'll be breaking down how they approach problems, how they tackle some code wars challenges, and then there'll be some pair programming afterwards. And then on every Thursday from 6 till 7, we run just that pair programming practice bit, triple P. And yeah, very casual. We get about 6 to 8 people coming along, all probably joining the same cohort. So it's very nice to meet people before even starting the course. Some people have passed their pairing session, so it's sometimes quite nice to hear from their experience what it was like. But yeah, so there's the code war stuff and all the kind of codey bit, and then the communication. And together, if you've done that, you'll be all set.
Cool, lovely stuff. Thank you, Joe. So the next question from Holly is asking, she's heard that the course is very intense. Is there ever a sense of people falling behind, and if so, how's it dealt with? And what makes it a standout application, which I think was covered. So, so Alice, it'd be great to hear about like the process to support developers if they are struggling a bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. So yes, the course is very intense. And yes, sometimes people feel like they're falling behind. I think because the course is very intense and a lot of things are covered, it can be like people can definitely fall into moments when they are stressing out about not covering everything or not remembering everything. There's also burnout that can happen. Sometimes the first 4 weeks people are all out, and then in the 5th week they just need to rest, but the course doesn't slow down at the 5th week, and so you have to learn to manage your rhythm. So there are a few ways, there are a few different ways in which we deal with this. One of the ways that the course really focuses on mindset. And this is something that hasn't been talked about in the Q&A until now, but Makers is not just about you gaining technical skills. It's also about you gaining human skills, emotional skills. And so we have our Chief Joy Officer, Dana, whose job is to support developers and to help them acquire emotional intelligence skills. But also she conducts meditation daily and yoga twice a week. She also has one-to-ones with devs typically who are struggling with stress or anxiety or doubts. So there's a lot of support on the mindset side. And in fact, that's really important for us because often the biggest obstacle to someone's learning is emotional. Often the thing that stops you from learning is thinking that you are going to fail. And that's not really how we see learning. Like we don't really believe that you can fail at learning. What happens is you'll do something and sometimes you fail in what you do and you'll learn from that and you know get up again and learn more. And so the most important part for us is to really be consistent with supporting you in moments of stress and doubts, and putting you back in a place where you are having fun. Because if you're having fun and you learn every day, whether it's in 3 weeks or in 10 weeks, you will have progressed and you will have come all the way. And in fact, I think that's something else that may be useful to mention. Like the bootcamp is, 4 weeks pre-course and 12 weeks main course, but after that starts the job hunt phase. And for apprenticeship, it's like 12 weeks bootcamp, and then after that starts the placement phase. But in both cases, whether at the end of the 12 weeks you're exactly job ready, or maybe you need a few more weeks, or doesn't matter as much. What is important is that you've started on that trajectory, you have the tools to learn, and you keep learning afterwards. And so we have people who maybe when they finish their 12th week, they are ready to pass a job interview right away. And then some people, it will take them a few more weeks to work a little bit more on their personal projects and go back to a few resources of the course, and we will support them while they're doing that, and we're here to help them answer their questions, and then they will be ready. So the course is kind of moving always forward, but there's no moment where if you haven't acquired what you need to know now, you're now like off the wagon. Like maybe you're trailing, maybe there are a few things that you didn't acquire when you had a chance early on, and then they'll come back and then you'll acquire them, and you'll be fine. So as long as you are set on that trajectory and your mindset is one of I keep practicing and I keep learning, then we're not really worried about you. So yeah, a lot of the intervention will be on supporting you and keeping you having fun, keeping you learning. That's the most important.
Cool, thanks, Alice. And Alice mentioned there our Chief Joy Officer, Dana. I'll drop a couple of her blog posts in the chat. She's created a bunch of content, and there's also a lot of YouTube videos of her talking about what her role is. So as we go along, I'll put a few of those in the chat so you can have a look at those after the call today. Cool. So the next question from Katie is asking about can you share some information about the DevOps apprenticeship that Makers Academy is doing? I can do. I've had to do some kind of messaging my colleagues in the background a little bit. But for those of you who don't know, we will be having a DevOps opportunity shortly. What I'm going to do is also drop that link into the chat because that's kind of like all that we know at the moment. And then again, as we know more, more will be announced. There's no dates at all yet for that, Joe, that I'm not aware of. Nothing yet. Cool. Yeah. So that document will be the best source of information for you. Cool. The next one's a technical question. Is there a minimum spec that you need on your computer for the course, or any particular OS that you need to have?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. So minimum spec, not, well, here's one way to put it. The most resource intensive thing that you'll have to run is Zoom. So right now you're running Zoom because you're here, part of this Q&A. And if your computer is a little bit out of breath by running Zoom right now, then maybe you want to look at a machine that is a bit more powerful. But in terms of development, we don't, like there's nothing that will need high-end machines. Like people do the course on MacBook Air, like old MacBook Airs, or and that works really fine. Now, in terms of OS, we recommend for the course, while you're on the course, we recommend you using either Mac OS X or Linux. And I would add that we only recommend using Linux if you are already a Linux user. Because it's quite specific, and if you've never used it, that it may be difficult to both have to manage Linux when the main OS used is Mac OS, and manage the learning of the course. Now, what does that mean if you are currently running Windows? Well, one thing we do is we actually, you can actually borrow a Mac from Makers for the duration of the course. So the pre-course is doable with any machine because you can always do it online. But then during the duration of the course, if you are a Windows user and you're worried about your machine, you can always borrow a Mac. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. So hopefully that answers your question. So the next one is asking, what with the pandemic happening, has it become more difficult to get a job? How long does it normally take to get a job after completing the course? Yeah, another really good question, and something I think that everyone is concerned about. I think from our experience, like when it was the kind of main depth of lockdown, hiring definitely slowed down significantly. Obviously everyone kind of trying to figure out what was going on. But now that I think companies in general, and especially tech companies, I think are getting into a bit more of a pattern of understanding, you know, how they're working and the adjustments have been made. From what like we've seen, our hiring has increased a lot. I'm not going to say it's exactly back to where it was because it's not, but hiring's definitely picked up quite a lot. In terms of how long it normally takes, I think for this period now, like I can't really speak for that because it is still, you know, there is still the potential for volatility. Before all this happened, I'd say our average was between 3 to 6 months. So that's also something to consider when you're applying for the course, that you've kind of prepared yourself for, you know, it's 16 weeks on paper, but then the job hunting section should almost be kind of considered as like a whole section of the course itself. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Does anyone have anything to add at all in that respect?
Yeah, like you said, it's hard to measure now, but yeah, we had a nice stat that came through that was that we've placed more makers in Q3 this year than we did in 2019 Q3. So that's kind of along with what Haley was saying, that we're hopefully getting back to companies getting familiar with remote, willing to have that conversation. Yes, I'll hire remotely, whereas before they were kind of, let me just wait and see what happens. And with the mixture of businesses opening up again.
Yeah, actually, I want to add something here, which is that the thing that has slowed down jobs has really been the pandemics, and you know, maybe other factors, but it's not about the devs not being ready to get a job after the bootcamp, right? And I can confidently say that because people, like, there are still people who get a job just the week after they finish the bootcamp, even now. It's just that the overall number of jobs has lowered during the pandemic, and so it has been more difficult to access job applications. But the level at which people are at the end of the bootcamp, this has not changed at all.
Cool, thank you both. Lovely. So the next one's asking, are there large disparities in the cohort's abilities, and how do coaches manage that? So Alice, I'm gonna go back to you.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I think there's a lot of diversity in our cohort, and to me, it's important. Like I see that way because there are people who come to us who have maybe some background in programming. I'm not saying they were devs before, but I'm saying maybe, you know, they taught themselves some programming, you know, a number of years ago, and they're coming back to it, and it has that effect of a fake beginner where they feel like they're starting from scratch, but actually it kind of accelerates and they go a lot faster at learning the basics. Whereas for some people, it's their very first time doing code, and so the basics are a little bit slower to acquire. So that happens sometimes. But then there's a lot of other skills that you have to use in the course. There's a systematic thinking, they're following processes, they're breaking down problems, and also a lot of teamwork and communication that is extremely important. It's not, as I said earlier, it's not like a secondary thing that you have to do. As a dev, when you're interviewing for a software engineering position, the company wants to know that you have tech skills, but you can also communicate and work in a team, and those two are really important. So I would say that people in cohorts may be at different levels on each of these skills, but in some ways, as a coach, it's really a strength because we can really leverage that to have the cohort help each other. And in fact, the more you like teaching someone something is actually a really useful way to solidify that knowledge. And I mean, it's something that we see every day as coaches, because we are coaching and explaining things, and it cements our own knowledge. And it's something that has been shown by studies that if you are supporting someone else do something, you'll improve your level at it, and you improve your practice. So the way it works is people have diverse abilities, and some people may be better at communicating, and a little bit under in like fundamentals of coding, but great at system thinking. Sometimes they're great at Googling, and there will be the person in the team that finds the resources that will help. And we try to use all of that so that people learn that they can rely on diverse members of the cohort for different things. And that's the best simulation of what it would be in a work environment. So for me, this diversity, it's more of a strength and an opportunity for everyone to be sometimes the teacher and sometimes the learner of someone else in the cohort. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Cool, thanks, Alice. Yeah, definitely don't let it put you off if you think you're not from a techie background. And like a good way of practicing with people of different levels is at the Code Accelerator sessions, which is a nice segue into our next question from Harriet, who's asking, where can you sign up for the pair programming sessions? You can only see the Code Accelerator. That just means I need to add more dates, so that's my bad. So if you look back on literally a couple of minutes after this event, I'll add the next couple of Thursdays and you can sign up for that. So yeah, be nice to see you there. So I'm going to work through the last 5 questions that we have, everyone. So yeah, if you have any other questions outside of these, like I said, you can always give us a call and we'll be happy to answer your questions. So the next one's asking about, I saw that we did piloted a part-time course. How did it go, and are we considering rerunning it? How does the content and price differ from the main bootcamp? Cool, thank you very much. So the part-time pilot is still on, obviously because it's part-time, it runs for a lot longer than the normal cohorts do. And as it is a pilot, we're kind of waiting to see what's happened with that for the full duration of the course before we kind of like plan the next date for it. So yeah, at the moment it's just kind of like waiting to see how it plays out, and then once we know how people have responded to it, then we'll kind of like weigh up whether to do it or not. In terms of content, I believe it's the same as the bootcamp. Joe, is there anything different that I'm missing on like content, price, that side of things?
Yeah, the price is the same because the content's the same and people leave as the same. And so yeah, we've kept it the same in that type of way. And as Hayley said, it's just stretched. And yeah, we're going to do a lot of feedback of people who are interested, and from the people who have done it, and from ourselves of what we've thought it's been like, and then decide on what the structure is going to look like again. Maybe it'll be the same, or might be a few tweaks to see what people want. But yeah, if you're interested, let us know. We'll take your details because you'll be part of that market research for when we might look to do it again.
Cool, thanks so much, Joe. So the next question was asking again about the job market. Hopefully that was covered in our last question, so I'm going to move this one to answered, but if there was a different angle that you were wanting to know about, please drop the question back and we'll go back and answer it. So I've just switched around. So the next question's asking, what's the best time to sign up for the course? They're thinking of completing Codecademy and Code Wars in the next few weeks. And ideally, they'd like to sign up for the 23rd of November cohort. Should they apply now for the November cohort or wait until they're more comfortable with Ruby?
Apply now. Get it on there. You become on our system. We get to see that. It means we're going to be able to keep more track of you more easily. Maybe give you a bit more support, point you to relevant events that will be on. We can be able to book you in for an interview. It's a lot more easy once you're on our system because, yeah, as I say, you become visible to us. But when you do apply, it's simply just applying on our website, filling in a short motivation letter about some of the prep you've done or about the prep that you will be doing. And then you'll soon have a link to be able to book a pairing session. And this is where we'll kind of work together to set out a timeline of what's going to sort of best suit you. But yeah, we say to apply about 6 to 8 weeks before the start date that you want to join, and to have completed a pairing session about 3 weeks before the start date. So that's kind of like a rough timeline.
Cool, thanks Joe. Hopefully that's answered your question, Katie. So we're getting to the last ones of today. So Pietro's asking, are all streaming events open to everyone? Yeah, we run, we also run events for some of the companies that we work with. But if you click onto the event, it will be listed on there, kind of like who it's aimed at. So yeah, that's the best way of telling. But yeah, in general, the ones that are kind of best for you if you're looking to do the course is this event, the Code Accelerator event, and we kind of every other month do a Q&A with our alumni as well. So those are the kind of main three to help you if you're applying. Katie's saying thank you very much as well. And the last two that we've got is asking, I had a phone interview with the admissions manager for the DevOps apprenticeship. What is the phone interview for? Oh, sorry, I have a phone interview. So Joe, is there anything that you can help with on that one?
Yes, so the apprenticeship admissions work slightly different, where you do what we call a REPL challenge instead of the pairing session. So it'll be an online coding challenge or 5 coding challenges. And because we won't really have heard your thought process and the approach to problems and things like that, we kind of pair it with a bit of a phone interview. But it's less sort of classic interview questions. We're not trying to catch you out ever with anything we do. We always try and, we're not trying to trip you up. It's more giving a space for you to perform at your best, basically. So don't be too daunted by it. It might just be a chat to get to know you, hear the prep that you've done, and maybe get to understand a bit more than just that online coding challenge.
Cool, thanks so much, Joe. So the last question today is coming from Holly, who's asking how many hours do you do outside of the 9 to 5? So Alice, maybe could you tell us like a little bit about what the day or the week looks like for the devs?
Yeah, for sure. I'll start by saying that it's not exactly 9 to 5. So typically people gather in peer groups. So that's groups of learners who get in touch every day throughout the course around 9:30 in the morning. And so some people like to do a bit of studying before, but some people arrive just at 9:30. And then the day ends because depending on the day, you are like each day you are pairing with someone in the afternoon, or you are working with a team in the afternoon. So there's a little bit of flexibility as you're pairing with someone. Sometimes you'll do a lot of intense pairing, and you know at 4:30 you're just both burnt and you'll just call it a day. And then sometimes you'll keep on pairing until 7 p.m. because you're just so enthusiastic about it. But I would say that typically people finish pairing around 5:30. On Tuesday and Thursday, actually, there's yoga organized from 5 to 6. So people join that. But there's some flexibility in the day because there's some mornings there's workshops, some mornings you may work independently on different exercises or different projects that are available to work on. Yeah, I guess I didn't cover that as much, but afternoon is pairing, morning is self-directed learning or workshops. And so there's some flexibility in how you do your day. In the afternoon, you'll manage with your pair if you want to start at 2, or maybe it's better for today to start at 2:30. So flexibility there. And then I guess some people do, spend some more time in the evening to read about some things that they missed during the day. Some people like to take the mornings for this. every Friday we send out a challenge to be done either over the weekend, or we send it on Friday morning to be done over Friday for the apprenticeship. So that's a slightly different format. And people over the weekend may spend 2 to 5 hours on the weekend challenges, but sometimes they will spend more. So for all of this, we will not set you a maximum limit. However, what I will say is from time to time, we get parents who do the course. And when we have parents, typically they're quite short on time. And so they try to manage everything between, 9 and 6 every day and 2 hours over the weekend. And I've definitely seen people who get the most discipline over how many hours they put in the course typically do quite well, because they are so efficient when they work. So you can absolutely succeed on the course with doing, a 9-6 plus 2 hours on the weekend. It's definitely possible, but each person will be different.
Cool. Thanks so much, Alice. There's one final sneaky question that's snuck in, so I'm going to ask for a quick fire kind of piece of advice from you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So they're asking if there's lots of free coding and dev courses available online, why should we choose Makers?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. To be fair, I answered it a little bit at the start of your Q&A. So if you want more details, there's also an answer there. You can always watch a recording again. But so yes, there are a lot of free coding and dev courses available online. And in fact, if you can teach yourself to be a developer through that, then all the more power to you. But in fact, what happens, and there are definitely people who self-train that way and do become amazing developers. So I think that's actually a strength in our domain in tech, that people can get into tech with anything from, I've learned this in the evenings on my own time, to I've done a PhD and took 10 years at university to learn this. You would choose Makers, one, if you've tried to use all the free resources online and you found it really hard to keep your motivation, keep your momentum. It has taken a lot of time. Maybe you get overwhelmed by all the things that are out there and you don't know what to focus on. And in fact, we have a lot of students who come to us who have spent, a year, 2 years, 6 months teaching themselves how to code, and they find that they are not able to go to the next step of actually getting to a place where they're confident applying for jobs. But you also come to Makers for the community, and in fact that's one of the most that's one of the biggest strengths of Makers. I think you get together with a cohort and you'll spend hours with them, and because you're paired with people, you are accountable to them, and so you really have to be there and you have to work and you have to learn. You can't just not learn if you're not feeling like it one day. And the rhythm is kind of moving forward at quite a fast rhythm. And so you are probably going a lot faster than what you would do if you were on your own, because we're kind of pushing you to go faster. But there's really a reason behind it, because we think that by moving forward and by having new challenges, you'll keep interested and you'll realize that actually you can do a lot more than you believe that you can. So I think at Makers, you come for the confidence, you come for the community, you come for having that rhythm and that accountability. And then later on, the community, it's not just during the bootcamp, it becomes the alumni network, which is this huge, workspace. We have a Slack workspace, there's events and conversations, and people help each other get a job. So you just belong to a family when you join Makers, which you would not necessarily have if you learned on your own. But with saying that, I want to say that there are definitely people for whom working on their own and studying on their own is going to be the right thing to do, and that's okay. I think there's enough. Yeah, I think that's okay. And I think if you believe that that's the way for you, you should do that. And if it doesn't work, you can always go to a bootcamp afterwards. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Cool. Thank you so much, Alice. I think that's a good one to finish out on. So yeah, that's going to be everything from us then today. So thanks everyone for joining us. We're going to be sending you all a follow-up with a couple of little bits of information that we covered there. So if you've missed anything, it will hopefully be there for you. And the recording of this will be on Facebook and YouTube. So again, you can watch any of the content or the questions and answers back. So yeah, that's everything from us. Have a lovely weekend, and yeah, hope to see you soon. All right, bye everybody.
Bye everyone.